woman I worked with, a great actress on the Flying Nun, grabbed me and took me to the back of the soundstage and put a piece of paper in my hand because I was really depressed.
Sally Field, a name that evokes respect, admiration, and an entire era of Hollywood brilliance, has long been celebrated as the industry's sweetheart, the girl next door who turned into a two-time Oscar-winning icon. But at 78 years old, after a lifetime in the spotlight, the Sally the world thought they knew is peeling back the curtain. Behind every glowing tribute and red carpet smile was a storm brewing, one filled with betrayal, coldness, manipulation, and emotional scars that never fully faded. With decades of repressed frustration and brutal honesty, she has finally done what few actresses dare, named the 6 actors she truly hated working with, not out of petty jealousy or momentary disagreements, but due to deep emotional wounds caused by toxic egos, passive-aggressive behavior, and professional sabotage. These weren't just artistic differences, these were psychological assaults, some subtle and slow burning, others explosive and public, but all unforgettable. In this exposé, we uncover the 6 names that haunted Sally long after the cameras stopped rolling. From romantic relationships turned controlling to co-stars whose arrogance destroyed projects, what emerges is a pattern of power imbalances that even Hollywood couldn't polish into glamour. Sally Field's journey wasn't just about fame, it was about survival. These revelations force us to reevaluate the price of success in an industry that often overlooks the emotional wreckage behind its brightest stars. Get ready, this list will shatter your assumptions about the actors you thought you knew, because Sally's truth is raw, relentless, and long overdue. Burt Reynolds may have been Hollywood's charismatic rogue to the public, but behind closed doors, Sally Field saw a far more unsettling side, one that left emotional bruises lasting years. Their relationship, which lit up tabloid headlines in the late 1970s, and brought magnetic chemistry to Smokey and the Bandit, wasn't the fairy tale the press made it out to be. Sally revealed in her memoir In Pieces that Burt was not just controlling but emotionally suffocating. He thrived on dominance and slowly dismantled her confidence through manipulation and subtle cruelty. He mocked her appearance, questioned her intelligence, and undercut her talent with backhanded compliments in public and icy silences at home. In interviews, he'd praise her with veiled insults, then return to passive-aggressive silence behind the scenes. Sally felt like a prized possession, something to be displayed, not cherished. Her voice was stifled, her individuality erased, as Burt insisted she remain smiling and quiet beside him. His love was conditional, a weapon to manipulate, not a comfort to rely on. At the height of her fame, she felt invisible next to him. "I never felt truly seen," she later said. "I was there, but not me, not the full me." Despite giving everything to make it work, Sally came to a devastating realization. She never really knew who Burt Reynolds was. The man who charmed the world was not the man who came home at night. And though she loved him, he hurt her. To the public, he was the bandit. To Sally, he was heartbreak disguised as love. And sadly, he was only the beginning of a long list of professional and personal betrayals. When Sally Field arrived on the set of Backroads, she was filled with optimism, finally a gritty, character-driven project with real emotional depth. But that excitement quickly turned into icy dread, and the source of it was her co-star Tommy Lee Jones. From the first day, Sally was met not with collaboration or connection, but with an emotional wall that refused to budge. Tommy Lee was cold, aloof, and disinterested, treating rehearsals as obligations and her presence as irrelevant. There were no warm greetings, no small talk, and certainly no effort to build rapport. Sally, who thrives on emotional openness and trust to craft a performance, found herself acting alongside a man who seemed determined to shut her out entirely. He showed up, hit his marks, delivered lines with mechanical precision, then left, never engaging, never connecting. It wasn't just artistic distance, it was personal disregard. Sally described trying to initiate conversations between takes, make lighthearted jokes, and ask questions to build chemistry, but Tommy wouldn't even look her in the eye. She was made to feel like dead weight, like she didn't belong on the same set. Critics later slammed the film for the lack of chemistry between the leads, but what the public didn't see was that the frost wasn't in the script, it was on the set. Sally later reflected that trying to play a woman finding love while standing next to a man who acted like she was invisible was emotionally devastating. She never worked with Tommy Lee Jones again. When asked about it years later, her response wasn't bitter, but the chill in her voice said it all. It wasn't just a bad partnership, it was emotional sabotage disguised as professionalism. When Sally Field stepped onto the set of Say Goodbye, Maggie Cole, she expected a challenging role, not a battlefield. Her co-star, Robert Blake, wasn't just difficult, he was the definition of volatility. Known for his intense method acting and sudden mood swings, Blake didn't simply bring chaos to his characters, he brought it to the entire production. Sally described the experience as one of the most emotionally draining of her career. Blake constantly veered off script, changed lines without warning, and added erratic, unscripted behavior mid-scene that derailed takes and undermined everyone's performance. To outsiders, it might have looked like creative spontaneity, but to Sally and the crew, it was pure sabotage. Behind the camera, he was worse. Erratic outbursts, tirades against crew members, and unpredictable emotional breakdowns that held the entire production hostage. One moment he'd be quiet, the next he'd be screaming at a lighting technician or storming off set over minor disagreements. Sally, trying to anchor the film, found herself forced into the role of peacekeeper, doing emotional triage while attempting to act. The tension poisoned every take, and the project slowly imploded under the weight of dysfunction. Ultimately, the film was shelved before it ever reached the public, lost not to bad storytelling, but to the toxic environment that swallowed the production whole. Sally later described the entire experience as traumatic, not just disappointing. "There are actors who act," she said, "and there are actors who try to make everyone else small so they feel big." Blake was the second kind. Those words weren't just critique, they were a scar carved from months of chaos. That film didn't just fail, it broke something inside her, and she left with a silent vow. Never again would she mistake madness for brilliance, or tolerate ego at the cost of humanity. Audiences fell in love with Steel Magnolias, touched by its emotional depth and powerful performances, but what they didn't see was the emotional war happening off-camera between Sally Field and Shirley MacLaine. What began as a dream collaboration between two legendary actresses quickly turned into a clash of egos and creative philosophies. Sally approached the role of Malin with heartfelt vulnerability and emotional precision, diving into the grief of a mother struggling with devastating loss, but Shirley saw every scene as a battlefield, and every take as a chance to assert her dominance. Colleagues on set whispered about her constant interruptions, her habit of injecting sarcasm into emotionally raw moments, and her obsession with reminding everyone of her Oscar pedigree. While Sally tried to honor the story's emotional weight, Shirley would hijack scenes, make unsolicited rewrites, and turn even the most serious moments into punchlines. One particular scene took 17 takes, not because Sally couldn't deliver, but because Shirley refused to stop making sarcastic remarks. It wasn't creative, it was sabotage. Sally soldiered through, hitting her marks and keeping her emotions intact, but behind her polite smiles was exhaustion. Years later, she spoke vaguely of the feud, saying that Shirley brought a cloud of chaos wherever she went, a restrained but damning indictment. It wasn't just a clash of personalities, it was a deeper war between someone trying to serve the story and someone determined to steal it. Sally never forgot the way that set felt. It wasn't a sisterhood, it was survival, and every tear she shed on screen was mirrored by the pain she endured behind it. The set of Kiss Me Goodbye was supposed to be lighthearted, a quirky romantic comedy offering Sally Field a welcome breath from heavier roles, but instead it became a psychological war zone, thanks to the manipulative intensity of James Woods. On paper, Woods was brilliant, respected, and razor-sharp, but in practice, his intelligence masked a darker instinct, control. From the moment filming began, Woods dominated the environment, not through shouting or tantrums, but with intellectual games and psychological digs. He'd rewrite lines on the spot, critique direction mid-scene, and most painfully, undermine Sally's performance with pointed comments that questioned her emotional depth and effort. "You're phoning it in," he once remarked during an emotionally heavy day of shooting. Words that cut Sally to the core. These weren't notes meant to build, they were designed to chip away at her confidence. Off camera, it continued. He'd plant doubts, suggest she wasn't trying hard enough, and subtly imply that she didn't belong at his level. For Sally, who had spent years carving out her place in a male-dominated industry, it wasn't just rude, it was psychological sabotage. She described the experience as less of a film, and more of a mental chess match she never signed up to play. When the project ended, Sally didn't just feel tired, she felt broken. The damage wasn't visible, but it was deep. She left that set changed, and in her quiet reflection came a vow that would define her future, no more allowing herself to be emotionally cornered by men who confuse arrogance with brilliance. That line wasn't just about Woods, it was about drawing a boundary that should have existed all along. If there was one name on Sally Field's list that truly shocked fans, it was Dustin Hoffman, a man the public adored as an acting legend, but who, behind closed doors, became the architect of one of Sally's most humiliating professional experiences. They never co-starred in a film, but their paths crossed in the early 80s during a high-stakes chemistry read for a project that never made it out of development. For Sally, it was supposed to be a career highlight, a potential creative match with one of Hollywood's greatest talents. Instead, it became a masterclass in condescension. From the moment she entered the room, Hoffman held court, cracking jokes with producers, dismissing the script, and treating the audition as his personal stage. When Sally began reading, he interrupted repeatedly, not to collaborate, but to correct, critique, and undercut her performance in front of the room. She later described it as auditioning for someone who had already decided she wasn't good enough, and it got worse. Days later, Sally heard through a mutual contact that Hoffman had deliberately sabotaged the session, bragging that the chemistry wasn't there and that he had made sure of it. For a woman who had earned Emmys, Oscars, and decades of industry respect, the moment was more than a setback, it was shattering. Sally felt like a schoolgirl being dismissed, not the accomplished actress she truly was. The pain lingered for weeks. She questioned herself, her abilities, even her worth. But in time, clarity came. The issue wasn't her performance, it was his ego. That audition became a defining moment. From then on, Sally vowed she'd never again work with men who needed to step on someone else's light to feel brilliant themselves. That day with Dustin Hoffman didn't just change her, it awakened her. After decades of crafting unforgettable performances, enduring public scrutiny, and surviving one of the most cutthroat industries in the world, Sally Field has finally spoken her truth, and the list of 6 names she will never forgive paints a haunting portrait of the hidden cruelty behind Hollywood's glittering surface. Burt Reynolds, the man the world adored, left her feeling invisible in the very relationship that defined their era. Tommy Lee Jones, a master of cold detachment, turned a film set into an emotional vacuum. Robert Blake brought chaos so intense it destroyed an entire production. Shirley MacLaine, with her oversized ego, battled for control instead of connection. James Woods manipulated her confidence into silence. And Dustin Hoffman, the ultimate shock, humiliated her during a pivotal moment that could have changed the course of her career. But what's most shocking isn't the behavior of these men. It's the strength it took for Sally to endure it all, while still smiling for the cameras. These weren't just workplace conflicts. They were deep, personal wounds that challenged her identity, her emotional safety, and her very sense of self-worth. And yet, Sally Field never broke. She never lashed out publicly, never indulged in revenge. Instead, she waited until the weight of age gave her the strength to tell her story without fear. Her journey is a masterclass in grace, under pressure, but it's also a powerful reminder that even legends carry scars. These 6 names serve as a warning that behind the scenes of fame, there are battles no one sees. And for every powerful man who tried to dim her light, Sally's legacy burns brighter. So now we ask you, the viewer of all the names she revealed, which one shocked you the most? Was there someone you never imagined could be so cruel? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the truth behind the screen is only just beginning to surface. And don't forget, like this video, subscribe for more stories Hollywood never wanted you to hear, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping reveal.